Ethan glanced at the horizon of Lysera and felt a mixture of awe and unease. The planet was unlike anything he had seen in his long career as an astronaut and explorer. Its sky shimmered in layers of green and violet, and two suns cast long, dancing shadows across the rolling fields of glowing grass. Strange, towering trees with crystalline leaves sparkled in the light, and the air itself seemed to hum softly, like the faint resonance of a distant bell. Ethan adjusted the straps on his helmet and stepped carefully over a patch of luminescent moss. His mission was straightforward: survey the planet for potential life forms and send detailed data back to Earth. Yet, nothing in his training had prepared him for the feeling that he was being watched. He turned slowly, scanning the glowing forests beyond the ridge. At first he saw nothing, but then out of the corner of his eye a flash of pale color caught his attention. A small figure stood just beyond the tree line, partially hidden in shadow. It was a girl. She looked human at first, with delicate features and long flowing hair that shimmered faintly in the alien light. But there was something about her that made Ethan stop dead in his tracks. Her eyes were too reflective, almost like mirrors, reflecting the vibrant landscape around her but with an unnatural clarity. They seemed to see him in ways no ordinary eyes could. Ethan froze. The girl did not move. She simply stared. Her gaze was calm, almost curious, but there was a weight to it, an intelligence that made him feel exposed and understood at the same time. He felt a shiver run down his spine, but it wasn't fear. It was fascination. He wanted to speak, to ask who she was, but his voice seemed trapped in his throat. The girl tilted her head slightly and, without a word, turned and disappeared behind the crystalline trees. Ethan exhaled slowly, trying to calm his racing heart. That was strange, he muttered to himself. He glanced at his wrist communicator and activated a quick scan of the surrounding area. Nothing unusual showed up, only the faint bioluminescent signals of the flora and the soft hum of the planet's energy field. Still, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that she was no ordinary child. Something about the way she had watched him. It was deliberate, almost like she was studying him. The rest of the day passed in a blur of cautious exploration. Ethan documented the planet's strange flora and fauna, noting the vibrant plants that seemed to pulse with their own inner light and the small, insect-like creatures that flitted through the air. But all the while, the girl's eyes haunted him. He couldn't help glancing toward the ridge every few minutes, half expecting to see her again. As the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the glowing fields, Ethan set up camp near a stream that shimmered with a liquid light of its own. He ate a simple ration, his mind still preoccupied with the girl. Then he saw her again. She was standing across the stream, partially hidden behind a crystalline bush, her reflection shimmering in the water. Ethan blinked, unsure if he was imagining things. Her eyes locked onto his again, and this time she didn't look away. Ethan swallowed hard. Something told him that approaching her directly might frighten her, or worse, provoke some unknown reaction. Instead, he sat quietly, lowering his body to appear less threatening. Minutes passed. The girl took a step closer, then another, her movements deliberate and cautious. She was small, no older than 12, but there was a presence about her that seemed far beyond her years. Ethan felt drawn to her, an unexplainable pull that went beyond curiosity. Finally, he spoke softly, almost in a whisper. "Hello, I'm Ethan. I come in peace." The girl paused. Then slowly she raised a hand and waved, a gesture simple yet profoundly human. Ethan smiled faintly. He didn't know if she understood him, but the gesture was enough to bridge the gap between their worlds, if only a little. Over the next hour, Ethan stayed still, letting her approach at her own pace. She circled him cautiously, studying him with those mirror-like eyes. Occasionally her gaze would flicker to his equipment, as if she was trying to understand what these strange devices were. Finally she stopped, standing just a few feet away. For a long moment they simply regarded each other, two beings from entirely different worlds sharing a silent, mutual curiosity. Ethan realized something remarkable: she wasn't afraid of him. In fact, her attention felt almost welcoming. The sun set completely, leaving the world bathed in the soft glow of Lysera's bioluminescent flora. Ethan's comms device beeped softly, signaling the approaching night. "I should probably get some rest," he said gently. "It's dangerous to be out here after dark." The girl tilted her head and let out a soft melodic hum, a sound that resonated with the faint energy of the planet itself. Ethan could feel it through his body, a gentle vibration, calming and strangely comforting. It wasn't speech, but it was communication. She was trying to tell him something without words. Ethan realized that he had entered a silent dialogue with her. Her curiosity matched his own, and somehow, he felt that understanding her world, or at least trying, was a challenge he was eager to meet. As he unrolled his sleeping mat, he noticed her retreating slightly, but she didn't disappear completely. From the shadows, her eyes continued to watch him, shining softly in the dim light. For the first time in his career, Ethan felt that being an explorer wasn't just about discovering new planets or strange creatures. It was about meeting beings who challenged everything he thought he knew about life. Connection and intelligence. That night, Ethan lay under the strange glowing sky, listening to the hum of the world around him. Occasionally he caught glimpses of her moving in the distance, always watching, always curious. And though he didn't yet understand why, he felt a bond forming, a connection that went beyond language or species. Somewhere in the depths of his mind, a question kept forming. Who was she really? And why did she seem so human, yet so much more than human at the same time? The stars above Lysera sparkled faintly, their light mingling with the bioluminescent glow of the forests. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the day and yet a strange excitement coursing through him. He knew one thing for certain. This encounter would change everything about how he viewed life, intelligence, and humanity's place in the universe. The next morning, the twin suns of Lysera rose slowly, casting soft violet and green light over the forests and glowing plains. Ethan woke to the gentle hum of the planet's energy and the faint glow of the bioluminescent moss beneath his sleeping mat. The air smelled sweet, almost like the faint aroma of honey mixed with fresh rain, though Ethan knew the planet had never seen rain in the way Earth did. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and looked around. For a moment, he thought he saw movement near the edge of the forest. Then he noticed her. Lyra, the young alien princess, was standing a little ways off, partially hidden among the crystalline trees, her mirror-like eyes studying him as she had the day before. Ethan smiled softly. "Good morning," he said gently. The words felt awkward, but he hoped the tone mattered more than the sound. Lyra tilted her head in response. She didn't speak, of course, but she stepped closer, her movements cautious yet deliberate. The sunlight shimmered on her hair, revealing strands that seemed to glow faintly like liquid silver. Her presence was almost otherworldly, yet somehow comforting. Ethan realized that he wanted to know more about her. He wanted to understand why she had been watching him, and what secrets this strange, beautiful world held. Slowly, he extended a hand in a universal gesture of trust. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I want to be your friend." Lyra studied his hand, then lifted her own delicate fingers and touched them lightly. The contact sent a small, warm pulse through Ethan's body, like a gentle vibration of life itself. He blinked, amazed, but did not pull away. She didn't speak words, yet in that simple touch he felt a strange connection, a silent bond forming. Over the next few hours, Ethan and Lyra stayed near the stream where he had camped. He moved slowly, careful not to frighten her, while she watched him with intense curiosity. When he drew a small notebook and began sketching the glowing plants and strange creatures, Lyra crouched down beside him, leaning in to see. Occasionally, she would reach out with her hand, and as she did, the objects around her, the glowing pebbles, small leaves and tiny insects, would react. Pebbles rolled gently across the ground without anyone touching them. Leaves lifted slightly as if caught in a breeze, and tiny sparks of light danced in the air. Ethan's eyes widened. You can do that?" he asked softly. "Move things. Just with thought?" Lyra nodded, smiling faintly. It wasn't a human smile exactly, but it was warm and genuine. She waved her hand slowly, and a small cluster of glowing leaves lifted into the air, forming a tiny, shimmering sculpture. It was delicate and intricate, and Ethan could feel the subtle energy pulsing from it. "This is incredible," he whispered. He realized that her abilities were far beyond anything humans could naturally do, yet she didn't seem dangerous. If anything, she radiated calm, curiosity, and an almost childlike wonder at the world around her. They spent the day exploring together, moving carefully through the glowing forests. Ethan noticed that the creatures of Lysera, small insect-like beings with translucent wings and soft glows, did not flee when Lyra approached. Instead, they seemed to recognize her, buzzing softly and circling around her in patterns that looked like greetings. Ethan was astonished. She was part of this world in a way he could not yet understand. By midday, the two of them had reached a clearing surrounded by tall crystalline trees. The sunlight filtered through the branches, creating prisms of light that danced across the glowing moss. Lyra stepped into the center and lifted her arms slightly. Ethan watched, fascinated, as a gentle wave of energy radiated outward from her. The air seemed to hum, and the forest responded. The leaves shimmered brighter. Small streams of light appeared in the air, and even the soft glow of the moss beneath their feet pulsed in time with the rhythm of her movement. Ethan could hardly believe what he was seeing. "It's like you're alive with the planet itself," he said in awe. You're connected to everything here." Lyra tilted her head again as if considering his words. Then she moved closer and touched his shoulder lightly. Another pulse of warmth ran through him, stronger this time. And in that moment he felt a silent message form in his mind, not words but a feeling. "You are safe. You are welcome. You are understood." Ethan's heart raced. He had encountered many alien species in his career, but nothing like this. Here was a being who communicated not with language but with thought, emotion, and subtle energy. And somehow he understood her. Somehow he could respond. Hours passed. Ethan tried to teach her simple things. Gestures, basic concepts, the idea of sharing ideas through symbols. Lyra absorbed everything quickly. It was clear that her intelligence was extraordinary, far beyond that of any human child, yet tempered with a gentle curiosity and a playfulness that made her seem approachable. As the second sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the mossy ground, Ethan realized something important. He was no longer just an explorer studying a strange world. He was forming a true bond with a living, thinking, and incredibly powerful being, and that bond was changing him. "Lyra," he said softly, using the name he had given her. "You are amazing. I've never met anyone like you." She smiled faintly, and for the first time Ethan noticed a faint shimmer along the edges of her form, like light bending around her skin. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it made her appear otherworldly, more than just human. Ethan's mind raced with questions, but he did not ask them yet. He wanted to earn her trust first. As night fell, the forest glowed with an even stronger natural luminescence. Ethan and Lyra settled near the stream again. Ethan ate a small ration, sharing some with her. She seemed to enjoy the textures and flavors of the food, but mostly she was interested in the human rituals. How he ate, how he rested, how he observed the world. "You're curious about humans," Ethan said, "just like I'm curious about you." Lyra hummed softly, a sound that echoed like wind through glass. It was her way of laughing, and Ethan chuckled softly in return. In that shared moment, they both understood something fundamental. Curiosity, empathy, and understanding were universal traits. They didn't need words to convey them. Before Ethan went to sleep, he looked at her one last time. She was lying down on a patch of soft moss, her eyes still reflecting the faint light of the bioluminescent plants, and for a brief instant her form flickered. It was so fast that he almost missed it, but he saw it, a hint of something radiant beneath her human-like appearance, like a glimpse of a being made of pure light. Ethan's pulse quickened. He did not know what she truly was, but he felt certain of one thing: this world, this encounter, and this young alien princess would change his life forever. He closed his eyes, feeling the gentle vibration of the planet around him, and drifted into a deep, restless sleep. In his dreams he saw strange visions of light and energy, of forests that breathed and rivers that glowed, and of Lyra, radiant and powerful, standing beside him. And even in sleep he felt her gaze upon him, curious, protective, and full of wonder. The bond between them, though unspoken and silent, had begun to grow. It was a bond of trust, curiosity, and mutual respect. Ethan realized that to understand Lysera, he would need to understand her. And to understand her, he would need to see beyond appearances, beyond words, and beyond the limits of human imagination. The morning sun rose slowly over Lysera, painting the sky with soft violet and green streaks. Ethan woke to the gentle hum of the planet, feeling the cool, glowing moss beneath his back. For a moment, he just lay there, listening to the faint whispers of energy flowing through the air. He had spent the night thinking about Lyra, the girl who was far more than she seemed. When he sat up, she was already there waiting for him. Her eyes reflected the morning light, brighter than ever, like two liquid mirrors holding the colors of the world. Ethan felt the same pull he had felt from the very first moment he saw her. There was something alive in those eyes, an intelligence and awareness that made him feel both welcomed and awed. "Good morning, Lyra," Ethan said softly. She responded with a slight hum, tilting her head in acknowledgement. There was no need for words. Their silent bond had grown stronger over the past day. Ethan had learned to understand her gestures, the subtle way she moved, and the way she used her eyes to communicate. And she had begun to understand him in her own way. They moved together through the glowing forests, Ethan taking notes and sketching in his notebook while Lyra observed everything around her. Occasionally, she would touch a glowing leaf or a hovering pebble, and the object would respond, floating gently or twirling in the air. Ethan was fascinated, watching her interact with her world as if it were an extension of herself. "You're amazing," he said quietly as he watched her. "I've never seen anyone do this." Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable, then lifted her hands and allowed a small ball of light to form between her palms. It hovered for a moment, pulsing with life, and then shot upward, dispersing into sparkling fragments that settled like tiny stars on the moss. Ethan could feel the energy reverberating through the air. "Lyra, what are you really?" he whispered, though he did not expect an answer. She did not respond with words, of course, but her eyes seemed to reflect a glimmer of something more, something that she had been hiding. The day passed slowly, with Ethan observing her and her abilities growing more intricate. She could manipulate light, energy, and even the small creatures of the forest. They seemed to trust her completely, circling her without fear. It was clear that the forest recognized her as part of it. Ethan realized that she was not merely an inhabitant of this world. She was part of its life force. As the second sun began to descend, a gentle hum filled the air, a vibration unlike anything Ethan had ever felt. It was low and resonant, moving through the ground and his body alike. He turned toward Lyra and saw her standing in the center of a clearing, her hands raised slightly. Her form flickered for an instant. Ethan blinked, thinking it was just a trick of the light, but then it happened again. Her hair shimmered with more intensity and the edges of her body seemed to blur and glow. For a heartbeat, Ethan saw her as she truly was, not a small human girl, but a radiant being of energy and light. He gasped softly, "Lyra, what are you?" She stepped closer, her gaze steady and calm, and then, in a moment of trust, she allowed him to see more. Her human form shimmered, fading briefly to reveal her true self. A tall, ethereal figure of light and flowing energy. Her limbs glowed faintly, her skin almost translucent, and her eyes sparkled with colors Ethan could not name. She was beautiful, awe-inspiring, and entirely alien. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He had seen incredible things in his life. New planets, strange creatures, phenomena beyond human imagination. But nothing prepared him for this. And yet he did not feel fear. He felt wonder, admiration, and an overwhelming sense of honor that she trusted him enough to show her true self. "You're incredible," he whispered. I don't know what to say." Lyra did not need to speak. Instead, she reached out, touching his chest lightly with a glowing hand. Another pulse of warmth and energy passed through him. This time, the connection was stronger, more vivid. And in that moment, a wave of understanding passed between them. She was not just a creature of Lysera. She was a guardian, a protector of her world. Her powers, her intelligence, and her presence were all tied to the life of the planet itself. Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand. At least a little. You're connected to this planet. You protect it. You care for it." Lyra tilted her head, and for the first time, Ethan noticed a small smile forming on her radiant face. She reached out and touched a cluster of glowing leaves, lifting them gently into the air. The leaves moved in graceful patterns, forming shapes that seemed to tell a story. Ethan watched, mesmerized. For hours he observed her, fascinated by the way she manipulated energy and light. She could create shapes, guide creatures, and influence the environment in subtle, beautiful ways. It was as if the world itself responded to her presence. And yet, she remained playful and curious, showing no signs of arrogance or power for its own sake. By evening, Ethan realized that he had learned more in a single day than he could have imagined about the life of this planet, and about Lyra herself. She was not only extraordinary, she was kind, gentle, and intelligent in a way that reminded him of the best of humanity. And yet, she was far beyond any human he had ever known. As the twin suns set, casting long, colorful shadows across the glowing landscape, Ethan and Lyra sat quietly near a stream. The water reflected her radiant form, shimmering like liquid light. She reached out and touched the water, and tiny ripples of glowing energy spread outward, lighting the surrounding moss and trees in soft waves. Ethan felt a deep respect for her, both for her abilities and for her choice to reveal herself to him. He understood that trust was rare in any species, and the fact that she allowed him to see her true form was an honor. You don't need to hide from me," he said softly. "I promise I'll respect you. And your world." Lyra's eyes shimmered brighter, and she hummed a soft melodic sound. Ethan felt it in his chest, in his bones. It was a vibration that carried meaning beyond words. In that hum he understood something profound. Trust was a bond that crossed the boundaries of species, language, and form. They stayed by the stream, until nightfall, sharing the silence and the soft glow of Lysera's natural light. Ethan felt a connection growing stronger, one that was not just curiosity or fascination, but mutual understanding. He realized that this was more than an encounter. It was the beginning of a relationship that could change the way humans thought about other life forms, intelligence, and empathy. Before he slept, Ethan looked at her one last time. Her form flickered again, the glow of her true self shimmering beneath the human appearance. He felt a mixture of wonder and humility. He was standing beside a being of extraordinary power and beauty, yet she had allowed him to share her world. And as he closed his eyes, he felt the silent bond between them strengthen. He was no longer just an observer. He was a participant in something incredible, a friendship, a connection, a shared understanding that transcended the limits of human experience. Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Lyra had shown him her true form, but there were still mysteries to uncover, secrets of her world and her people that he had yet to understand. And he was ready. He drifted into sleep, dreaming of radiant forests, floating lights, and the gentle pulse of energy that seemed to flow through Lyra herself. And even in sleep he felt her gaze, steady and unwavering, filled with curiosity and trust. Tomorrow would bring new discoveries, deeper understanding, and perhaps even greater revelations. And Ethan felt certain that whatever came next, he and Lyra would face it together, two beings from entirely different worlds bound by trust, curiosity, and the extraordinary bond of silent friendship. The next morning on Lysera, Ethan woke to an unusual tension in the air. The hum of the planet's energy seemed sharper, almost urgent, and the soft glow of the bioluminescent moss flickered irregularly. Something was wrong. He quickly packed his small field kit and moved toward the clearing where Lyra usually waited. She was there, as always, but her usual calm expression was replaced by something serious. Her eyes glowed more brightly than normal, reflecting a spectrum of colors Ethan had never seen before. She was communicating something urgent even though no words were spoken. Ethan approached cautiously. "Lyra, what's wrong?" he asked. She lifted her hands and pointed toward the horizon. Ethan followed her gaze and saw it, a strange dark mass moving across the sky, pulsating with energy. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a swirling anomaly of darkness and light drifting slowly toward the planet. Instinctively, he reached for his communicator. "Mission Control, I see an unknown anomaly approaching Lysera. It's It's unlike anything we've recorded. There was no reply. The planet's energy must have been interfering. He turned back to Lyra, who was already moving. She gestured for him to follow, gliding across the glowing moss with effortless speed. They reached a higher ridge, giving them a better view of the anomaly. Ethan's mind raced. That could destroy the planet. Or at least, disrupt the energy here completely. Lyra nodded, her eyes shimmering. Then, in a sudden display of light, she extended her hands toward the sky. A radiant shield of glowing energy spread from her, partially stabilizing the anomaly. Ethan watched in awe as the darkness and light twisted against her power, like a storm trying to resist her command. It's incredible, Ethan breathed. You can contain it. Lyra glanced at him, and for the first time she spoke. Not in words, but in a thought that entered his mind clearly. I cannot stop it alone. Your mind, your knowledge, can help. Ethan's heart pounded. He realized that this was bigger than anything he had trained for. What do you need me to do? He asked. She gestured to the energy readings flickering across his portable scanner. Ethan saw fluctuating patterns, unstable energy pulses, and weak points in the anomaly structure. He began working quickly, connecting his equipment to the natural energy flows around them. He adjusted settings, calculated frequencies, and devised a plan to stabilize the anomaly's core, using his human knowledge of physics and engineering alongside Lyra's alien energy control. Lyra worked with him seamlessly. She extended her hands, sending pulses of energy and rhythm with his calculations. Ethan could feel the subtle interplay of her power and his human ingenuity. The two of them moved together as one, humans and alien abilities combining in ways that were both delicate and powerful. Hours passed. The anomaly surged and pulsed, threatening to overwhelm them. But Ethan and Lyra continued their coordinated effort. He adjusted his equipment, recalculated patterns, and monitored energy flows, while she projected light and energy to stabilize weak points. Together they created a rhythm, a harmony between human intellect and alien power. At one point the anomaly surged violently, and Ethan was thrown backward slightly. Lyra's hand shot out, enveloping him in a protective bubble of energy. "Thank you," he whispered. He realized that without her, he would have been powerless, and without him, she could not have controlled the anomaly's unpredictable behavior. By late afternoon, the anomaly's movement slowed. The dark mass began to dissipate as the combined effort of human and alien knowledge reshaped the energy flows. Ethan felt his chest heave, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra's glow dimmed slightly as she released the final pulse of energy, stabilizing the anomaly completely. For a long moment, they simply stood there, breathing heavily, looking at the sky. The anomaly was gone. The skies of Lysera returned to their usual calm, filled with shimmering light and soft hums. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, and even the small creatures returned to their normal patterns, as if nothing had ever happened. Ethan turned to Lyra, awe and gratitude written across his face. "We did it," he said softly. I can't believe it." Lyra looked at him and smiled faintly, her eyes sparkling with warmth and pride. Another thought entered his mind. "You are brave. You are resourceful. You are part of this world now." Ethan felt a surge of pride and humility. He realized that this was what humans could do at their best: adapt, think, and act with courage and intelligence, even in situations far beyond their understanding. And when combined with trust and cooperation with other beings, extraordinary things were possible. As the suns began to set, Ethan and Lyra moved back toward the clearing. The forest glowed softly under the fading light, and Ethan noticed the subtle energy patterns that Lyra had left behind, tiny currents of light flowing through the moss and leaves, like a gentle heartbeat. "You saved this planet," he said quietly. "No one else could have done it. Not without you, and not without me." Lyra tilted her head, her radiant form shimmering slightly in the fading light. Another thought came to him. Together we are stronger. Together we can protect what is precious. Ethan nodded slowly. He understood that the bond they had formed was not just personal, it was vital. It was a combination of trust, knowledge, courage, and empathy that could face challenges no single being could overcome alone. Night fell, and the stars of Lysera twinkled brightly against the violet and green sky. Ethan and Lyra sat by the stream, watching the glowing reflections dance across the water. He reached out and touched the water with his fingers, sending small ripples across the surface. Lyra mimicked the movement, her radiant hands creating shimmering patterns that intertwined with his ripples. Ethan smiled. "We did it," he whispered again, though this time it felt different. It was not just a statement of survival, it was a recognition of unity. Human ingenuity, courage, and persistence had combined with Lyra's alien abilities and wisdom to achieve the impossible. For a long while, they remained there, silent but connected. Ethan realized that in this moment, he had learned more about life, trust, and cooperation than any mission or study could teach. He had witnessed the best of humanity and the best of another species, working together as equals, sharing strengths and learning from each other. Finally, Ethan lay back on the soft moss, exhaustion washing over him. Lyra settled nearby, her radiant form glowing softly in the moonlight. Ethan felt the pulse of her energy, steady and calm, and knew that their bond had grown stronger than ever. Before sleep took him, he whispered quietly, "Whatever comes next, we can face it, together." Lyra's eyes shimmered in response, and for the first time Ethan felt a deep certainty. The planet, its creatures, and even the strange anomaly had shown him that humans were capable of incredible things. Courage, empathy, and intelligence could combine to overcome the greatest challenges. And in Lyra, he had found not just an ally but a friend, a guide, and a partner in understanding a world far beyond Earth. As the night deepened, Ethan drifted into sleep, dreaming of glowing forests, radiant rivers, and the gentle pulse of energy that connected him to Lyra. And even in dreams, he felt her presence, steady, reassuring, and filled with wonder. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new discoveries, new challenges, and perhaps even more revelations about Lysera, Lyra, and the extraordinary bond forming between a human and an alien princess. But for now, he slept, confident that whatever came, they would face it together, with courage, intelligence, and the extraordinary power of trust. The morning on Lysera dawned soft and calm. After the anomaly the day before, the planet seemed to breathe a little easier. The glowing moss shimmered brighter, and the streams reflected the twin suns with renewed clarity. Ethan woke feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known since arriving. For the first time, he truly felt part of this world, not as an intruder but as a friend, a companion in its wonders. Lyra was waiting at the edge of the glowing forest, her eyes reflecting the sunlight in brilliant patterns. She approached silently, radiating warmth and energy. Ethan felt a small thrill of joy. He had grown so used to her presence that the thought of facing the day without her seemed impossible. "Good morning," Ethan said softly. Lyra responded with her soft, melodic hum, a sound that had become comforting to him, almost like a morning greeting between friends. They walked through the forest together, the soft glow of the moss beneath their feet illuminating the path. The creatures of Lysera greeted them in their usual way, small glowing insects and delicate plants moving gently as if acknowledging Lyra's presence. Ethan marveled at the harmony of life around them. It was a world so alive and yet so peaceful after yesterday's chaos. As they reached the clearing near the stream, Lyra stopped and looked at Ethan. Her form shimmered more brightly than before. The subtle flickers of her true self, which Ethan had glimpsed earlier, now pulsed steadily, revealing more of the radiant being she truly was. She lifted her hand slowly, sending a ripple of light across the moss and water. The ripple spread outward, illuminating the forest in dazzling colors. Ethan watched in awe. He understood what was happening. Lyra was fully revealing herself, not just a glimpse but her true form in its entirety. She was tall, elegant, and made of radiant energy, her limbs glowing faintly, her eyes sparkling with an intelligence and warmth that went beyond human understanding. The air around her hummed softly, resonating with life, energy, and harmony. "You're magnificent," Ethan whispered. He felt a surge of emotion, admiration, gratitude, and a touch of sadness, knowing that this beauty and power existed in a world so different from his own. Lyra extended her hand toward him. He hesitated only briefly before taking it. Another pulse of warmth ran through him, stronger than ever before, and in that pulse he felt something profound, a deep understanding, a silent communication of trust, gratitude, and connection. She had shared her world, her powers, and her trust with him. And in doing so, she had changed him. He realized that human courage, curiosity, and empathy had allowed him to earn this bond. They were not just traits of survival. They were the qualities that could bridge worlds. Ethan looked around the clearing. Everything felt alive with energy. The forest, the streams, the glowing moss, and the creatures. They all seemed to respond to Lyra's presence, to the harmony she radiated. He felt honored to witness this, to be part of this moment. "Lyra, I'm going to miss this," he said quietly. She tilted her head, her eyes reflecting understanding. Ethan knew she understood him perfectly. Even without words, he had to leave. His mission was ending, and he could not stay on Lysera forever. He had responsibilities back on Earth, and yet leaving felt impossible. He had discovered a world beyond imagination and had made a friend, and perhaps more than a friend, who had changed the way he saw life, trust, and intelligence. Lyra seemed to sense his thoughts. She reached out and gently touched his cheek. The pulse of energy from her hand was soothing, comforting, and full of reassurance. Another silent thought entered his mind. You are part of this world now, even if you must leave. You are never truly gone. Ethan smiled faintly, a mix of sadness and gratitude in his expression. Thank you, he whispered, for trusting me, for showing me, for everything. Lyra's glow intensified slightly, a sign of acknowledgement, a silent way of saying, and thank you. She raised her hands and released a wave of light into the sky, a display that painted the clouds in vibrant, swirling colors. It was both a farewell and a blessing, a reminder that their bond transcended distance and words. For a long moment, they stood there, hand in hand, in the glowing clearing. The forest hummed softly around them. The streams reflected their light, and the creatures of Lysera observed quietly. Ethan realized that this moment, this connection, was something he would carry forever. Finally, he began to step back. His shuttle was waiting, and he could not delay any longer. I'll never forget you, Lyra, he said. She tilted her head, a faint shimmer of a smile across her radiant features. Another pulse of understanding entered his mind. Nor will I forget you. Ethan took a deep breath and turned toward the path that led to his shuttle. Lyra followed a few steps behind, shimmering in her true form, radiating light that made the forest glow brighter. He glanced back one last time, and for a moment their eyes met. He felt the silent promise between them, that their worlds were connected and that their bond would endure. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, breaking the serene quiet of the forest. Ethan climbed aboard, his fingers brushing the console as he prepared for departure. Lyra stood at the edge of the landing site, glowing brilliantly, her form pulsating with light and life. As the shuttle lifted off, Ethan looked down at her. The distance between them grew, but the connection remained. He could still feel the pulse of her energy, steady and calm like a heartbeat echoing across the stars. He turned back to the viewport, watching Lysera shrink below him. The forest shimmered, the streams glowed, and the world itself seemed to bow in farewell. Ethan felt a mixture of longing, gratitude, and awe. He had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would stay with him forever. As the shuttle left Lysera's orbit, Ethan reflected on the lessons he had learned. Curiosity, courage, empathy, and intelligence were not just human traits. They were universal tools for connection and understanding. And when combined with trust and cooperation, they could achieve wonders beyond imagination. He remembered the anomaly they had faced together, the challenge they had overcome. It was not just Lyra's power or his knowledge alone that saved the planet. It was their unity, their bond, their shared understanding. That realization filled him with pride and hope for humanity's potential. Days later, back on Earth, Ethan recounted his experiences to the scientific community. Many were skeptical, some even laughed, but he did not care. He had seen the impossible. He had walked with a being whose existence defied human imagination. And more importantly, he had learned that humans were capable of extraordinary things when they approached the universe with curiosity, empathy, and courage. Ethan kept a small, glowing crystal that Lyra had gifted him before departure. It pulsed softly in his hand, a reminder of the bond they shared, a piece of Lysera that would always remain with him. He often stared at it, remembering the radiant forest, the shimmering streams, and the young alien princess who had revealed her true form. Sometimes, Late at night, Ethan would feel a pulse, faint but unmistakable, and he would smile. Lyra was still out there in her world, glowing and living in harmony with the planet she protected. And he knew that someday perhaps their paths would cross again. For now, though, he carried the memory and the lessons of Lysera with him. The planet, the princess, and their shared adventures had changed him in ways no mission, no book, and no lecture ever could. He had seen what humans could achieve when they trusted, understood, and connected not just with each other, but with beings from entirely different worlds, and that, he realized, was the true wonder of the universe. Not the planets, stars, or anomalies, but the connections formed between living beings, connections built on trust, courage, and the desire to understand. Ethan placed the glowing crystal on his desk, watching it pulse softly in the dim light of his lab. He closed his eyes, remembering Lyra's radiant smile, the shimmer of her true form, and the silent bond they had shared. He felt a warmth in his heart, a quiet certainty that the universe was far more amazing and humanity far more capable than he had ever imagined.